Hi, and welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about an electroculture antenna with leaf bead accents. So you can use any type of beads, but for this I use leaf beads. Now these are winding tools that you can buy on Amazon and many other places, and you use those winding tools to help you wind up the bare copper wire to make the top of the antenna. So it's pretty easy to do that, and then you just untwirl the plastic and it just comes right off, and you end up with your top of your antenna. And this is what it looks like when it's all coiled up. And usually I use like 14 or 12 gauge bare copper wire for it, because then they stand up better. If you use a thinner wire, it tends to like droop, especially if you're going to add decorations like beads and stuff on the top of it. You will want to have a pretty decent, robust wire to start out with. And then at the bottom, you use a dowel, like a 1/4-inch diameter wooden dowel, and that'll hold it up in the air, and then you would stick the dowel into the ground, usually about halfway. So you want your dowel to be about, I don't know, about a foot long. Now at the top of the coil, I am making a little like loop, because I'm going to be attaching a bunch of thinner wires. I'm actually using 22 gauge wires for this, and I cut a bunch of different lengths, like between 5 and a foot long, and then I twisted them in half, and I'm twisting them around the top of that loop that I made. And now I'm using another piece of wire, and I'm like looping that back and forth right around the top there to help hold my group of wires up in the air, because I want my little leaf cluster to kind of like peek out of the top of my electroculture antenna. So I'm like winding that around to hold. And as I said, you can use any kind of beads you want. I'm happen to use some glass leaf beads for this, and that's why I'm using the 22 gauge wire, because the wire is thin enough for the bead to go on. Now I'm using various tools to do my twisting, because I wanted to make like little like twisty shaboing coils bouncing off of these, and between my top cluster and the bead itself, that you can go straight, whatever design you want to do. But I'm using some round needle nose pliers to make my little springy coils. So I'm making a bunch of those on each one. I used about 15 different wires on the top to make this cluster. And as you can see, I'm just coiling them around, and I'm leaving, because I'm going to put a bead at the end of these, I'm leaving some uncoiled wire at the end. I have done projects where I've cut the wire off right at the top of the coil, and I've made closer coils, tighter coils, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can make your coils, so you can wrap your wires around whatever you have. It just really helps, if you're going to make one of these coily things, to have a tapered metal object to wrap your wire around. And I'm doing this until I'm all done, and I've made a little coil on each one. And yeah, it gets kind of convoluted. And as you can see, some of them are longer than others. And as I said, That's why I use different length wires. I didn't want them all to be the same. So you can also use, like this right here is a nail punch, like you'd use to set a nail into wood, and they make for very nice tapered metal object for your coil, for making coils. And I have a video on making coils, and I'll put that in the description. This right here is another piece of metal that I'm using to make a coil. So whatever works for you. And this is what it looks like before I've added any beads. So I have a bunch of different beads that I bought on Amazon, and I'm going to put in the description page a bunch of different materials that you can use, that you can purchase on Amazon. As an Amazon associate, I do get a little bit of money if you happen to order after looking at the site, but it's just like a couple cents, so it doesn't really matter. I'm doing it more so that you can see where you could get the projects, the materials. So for this one, I'm putting it through the 22 gauge copper wire, and then I'm holding the tweezers to the wire itself, and then twisting the piece of glass a few times to make it attached. So I didn't use any solder for this project. I'm just twisting wire. And because I got some different batches of green leaves, I ended up with about 4 or 5 different colored leaves, and that's what I'm using for these leaves. I wanted a little bit of variety. I've used these leaves in other projects also. Sometimes I foil all the way around the leaves and then I solder them into projects, and sometimes I do like this and just leave them as beads. So, as I was saying earlier, you could use different beads if you want to. So with this project, I'm actually kind of threading on some different stones. So this was a different video I did. I just wanted to add a little bit of it for this particular demonstration, because it kind of helps show how you can make the coils. So you can just kind of loop, or make like a little loop at the end, and that'll help keep your beads on. So if you want to use different beads, you don't have to go all the way around the hole. You can make like a little like ball or another little coil on the other end of the bead that you added, and that would obviously hold your stone in place or your glass in place. So as you can see, you can use different pliers to help bend your coils. So this is what it looks like when it's done. It's just kind of fun, a very small, quick little project for those who like to have electrocultural antennas in their garden for indoor or outdoor use. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.